I always believed that family meant loyalty, especially when it came to blood. You grow up trusting that the people closest to you would be the last ones to hurt you. But what happened to me flipped that belief upside down, and to this day, I still can't believe it actually happened. This isn't something I ever thought I'd go through, and definitely not with someone I watched grow up like my own little brother. When I say I never imagined my nephew would do this, I mean, not in a million years. It all started like any other weekend. My husband and I had been going through a rough patch, nothing unusual in a long marriage. A few arguments here and there, some distance growing between us, but nothing that screamed betrayal. We were still living under the same roof, still doing the usual routines. I had no clue that behind those small, quiet moments of tension, something much deeper was brewing, something that would change everything. My nephew, Jordan, had just turned 23. He was staying with us temporarily while trying to save up for his own place. I had watched this boy grow up, played a part in raising him even. He'd always been respectful, helpful around the house, the kind of young man you'd trust without thinking twice. It never once crossed my mind that I needed to keep my guard up around him. He was family. Looking back, there were signs, little moments that didn't feel quite right, but I brushed them off. A strange glance here, an odd comment there. At the time, I thought I was just overthinking, maybe reading too much into things because of the stress in my marriage. I blamed my own emotions. After all, I was already feeling vulnerable, trying to keep things together, convincing myself that things at home were still okay. One day, I came home earlier than usual. I'd left work a bit early to surprise my husband and maybe rekindle some of that spark we'd been missing. I remember walking through the door and sensing something was off. The house was too quiet. Not just regular quiet, but the kind of stillness that feels unnatural, like something's hiding just beneath the surface. You know that gut feeling you get when something's not right? Yeah, that. I called out for them, thinking maybe they were out back or upstairs. No answer. I walked through the house, room by room, until I opened the guest bedroom door, and froze. What I saw in that moment, I still struggle to put into words. My heart felt like it stopped. My mind couldn't process it right away. It was like watching a scene from someone else's life, not mine. I won't go into the details of what I saw, but let's just say the betrayal hit me like a freight train. My husband, my nephew, together, in a way that no one would ever expect. I stood there, paralyzed, not knowing whether to scream, cry, or run. And in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my family, myself, just crumbled. What happened next left me in complete shock. You might think the worst part was walking in on them. But trust me, the real twist came after. The lies, the manipulation, the way they tried to flip the story, it was something out of a nightmare. I never imagined I'd be the one living a true infidelity story like this. And to be betrayed by two people I loved in the most unexpected way? You won't believe how far it went and who turned on who in the end. Keep watching, because this story is just getting started. I stood there in the doorway, unable to move, barely able to breathe. Time felt frozen, like the world had just stopped spinning. The way they both looked at me, my husband shocked, my nephew completely still, it was like they had been caught in the middle of something they never expected to be exposed. But it wasn't just what I saw that crushed me, it was who they were. The two people I thought I could trust the most. I didn't say anything. I just turned around, walked out, and drove. I don't even remember where I went that day, I just needed to get away. Over the next few days, I tried to make sense of it all. My mind kept replaying every conversation, every moment, trying to spot what I had missed. I thought about how Jordan had started acting differently a few months ago. He was more distant with me, but oddly close to my husband. I figured they were just bonding. Maybe my husband was giving him some guidance, trying to be a mentor. I never once saw it for what it really was. And my husband, we'd been married for 9 years. We had our ups and downs, sure, but I never imagined this would be the way things would fall apart. I started noticing that he had been picking more fights with me, staying out later, always glued to his phone. When I asked him about it, he'd either say he was tired or that I was being paranoid. He made me feel like I was the problem. What hurt the most was the way Jordan started avoiding me after that day. No apology. No explanation. Just silence and awkward tension that hung in the air like thick smoke. My husband, on the other hand, tried to act like nothing had happened. He didn't bring it up. He didn't say sorry. He didn't even seem afraid of what it could mean for us. That made me question everything even more. Was this the first time? Was this a mistake? Or had this been going on right under my nose for longer than I could imagine? I didn't tell anyone, not right away. I couldn't. It was too embarrassing, too confusing. I wasn't even sure how to explain it without sounding like I was making it up. Who would believe me? I kept thinking, how do you tell your family that your husband betrayed you with your own nephew? It just didn't feel real. But the questions kept piling up. Why did Jordan move in with us in the first place? Was that really about saving money, or was there something more to it? Had they been planning this behind my back all along? The more I thought about it, the more things didn't add up. Certain looks they exchanged when they thought I wasn't watching, how quickly they both would go quiet when I entered the room, things I ignored before suddenly made sense. I started digging, quietly. Watching. Listening. I went through old messages, checked phone records, even looked back at photos. What I found made my stomach turn. This wasn't some sudden, emotional mistake. There was more to it, something deeper, darker. I could feel it. And the worst part? I still didn't know how far it had gone, or who else might have known. And just when I thought I'd seen the worst of it, something else happened. Something that made everything 10 times worse. But I'll get to that. Because what came next changed everything, again. After that night, the house felt colder, like all the warmth had drained out and left behind nothing but silence and suspicion. Jordan barely came out of his room, and when he did, he couldn't even look me in the eye. My husband acted like he was just tired, stressed, not in the mood to talk. But I wasn't buying it anymore. Something was broken between us, and no matter how much he tried to cover it with small talk and fake normalcy, the truth was still right there, just beneath the surface. I started to notice how they were always avoiding being in the same room with me at the same time. It was like they knew the tension was about to snap and no one wanted to be the one to trigger it. Every quiet moment between us was filled with unspoken words. I wanted answers, but I wasn't sure I was ready to hear them. Still, I couldn't keep pretending. I needed to know the truth, not just about what happened that day, but how far back it really went. That's when I decided to reach out to someone I hadn't talked to in a while, Jordan's ex-girlfriend, Bree. Bree and I had been somewhat close when she and Jordan were together. She used to come over for dinner, help out during family gatherings, that sort of thing. Their breakup had seemed messy, and at the time, I thought it was just young love falling apart. But now, I was starting to wonder if there was more to that story. When I messaged her, I didn't expect her to respond right away. But she did. And the things she told me shook me to my core. She said Jordan had always been secretive, even when they were together. He'd often talk about how he had things going on she wouldn't understand, and that he was in deeper than she knew. She mentioned how uncomfortable she felt around my husband during a couple of those dinners, how Jordan seemed almost protective of him, even possessive. I could hear the uneasiness in her voice as she spoke. And suddenly, her breakup with Jordan didn't seem so simple anymore. That conversation opened a door I wasn't ready to walk through. It made me realize this wasn't just a betrayal. This was a pattern. A twisted connection between two people I never would have expected. And just when I thought I had a grip on the situation, I found something else, something hidden away in Jordan's backpack while he was out. A small journal. Pages of thoughts, some innocent, others not. The things he wrote in there made my skin crawl. But the final page? That one changed everything. And what it revealed only made the danger feel even closer. My hands trembled as I turned the final page of Jordan's journal. The words were messy, rushed, like he had written them in a panic. He mentioned dreams he couldn't explain, feelings he knew were wrong, but couldn't stop. He wrote about guilt, about fear, and about being pulled into something too deep to escape. But the part that chilled me the most was a sentence near the bottom. If she ever finds out everything, I don't know what he'll do to her, or me. I read that line over and over. My heart raced. Who was the he was talking about? My husband? Someone else? The questions swirled around in my head like a storm I couldn't escape. I was no longer just dealing with betrayal. There was something darker happening, something I hadn't even considered. Was Jordan scared of my husband? Was there manipulation involved? The power dynamic between them started to feel more disturbing the more I thought about it. I decided to confront my husband, but not without proof. I began recording conversations around the house. I needed something real, something I could hold on to in case things went even more sideways. That's when I caught him on a phone call late one night. He didn't know I was listening from the hallway. His voice was low, but clear enough. He said, "She's getting too close. We need to figure out how to fix this before she blows everything up." My stomach dropped. We? Who was he talking to? Jordan? Someone else? I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the house made my heart jump. I felt trapped, like I was living in a home with two strangers who were plotting behind my back. Every part of me wanted to run, but something kept me there. I needed to see how far this went. I needed answers before it was too late. And then, something happened that pushed everything to the edge. A text message. One I wasn't supposed to see. One that revealed a plan and a deadline. Something was coming. And I didn't know if I was ready for it. The text message came in around 2:17 a.m., lighting up my husband's phone on the nightstand. He was asleep, or at least pretending to be. Something told me to look. My hands were shaking as I picked up the phone, already dreading what I might find. The message was from an unsaved number and simply read, "She's getting suspicious. Make sure she doesn't find the photos." Photos? I froze. My mind went blank for a second before panic kicked in. What photos? And where were they? I suddenly realized this had gone beyond betrayal. It was a setup, and I was the one being played. This wasn't just a secret affair. It was something else. Something calculated. And maybe even dangerous. The next morning, I pretended everything was fine. I smiled, made coffee, went through the motions like nothing had changed. But inside, I was watching every move. Every glance between them, every word. I searched the house in every free moment I had. Then, finally, tucked away inside a shoebox at the back of the hallway closet, I found a USB drive sealed in an envelope with my name written on it, my name. As if they wanted me to find it eventually. I locked myself in the bathroom, plugged it into an old tablet, and what I saw nearly made me drop the device. There were photos, screenshots of messages, images of me, but taken secretly, from inside the house. Some were of me asleep. Others were from behind doors, through cracks. Dozens of them. And then, toward the end, pictures of Jordan and my husband, together in ways that confirmed everything I feared, and then some. But there was something else. One photo showed a document. A forged signature. My signature. On something that looked legal. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just emotional betrayal. It was a setup. A plan. And I was at the center of it. But why? And what were they really after? I stared at the photos, my breath caught in my throat. The forged signature was on a property transfer document, my name used to sign over rights to a piece of land I had inherited years ago from my late mother. Land that had recently skyrocketed in value. That's when everything clicked. This wasn't just about infidelity. It was about money. Manipulation. A carefully planned betrayal from inside my own home. That night, I confronted them. I sat them both down and laid the USB on the table. They froze. My husband's face went pale. Jordan didn't say a word. I asked one question, why? And after a long silence, my husband finally spoke. He admitted it all. The affair. The forged documents. The plan to take the land and quietly disappear before I could notice. Jordan looked like he wanted to crawl out of his own skin. He said he was pressured into it, that he never meant to hurt me, but by then it didn't matter. The damage was done. I called a lawyer the next morning. The forged document gave me enough grounds to press charges. I also filed for divorce. The entire story unraveled fast after that. Family found out, and suddenly the ones who once stood by them now stood by me. Justice moved quickly. I regained ownership of the land and secured legal protection against both of them. But here's the twist I never saw coming. A month later, I got an anonymous letter in the mail, inside, a single photo. It was of my husband, sitting in a car, shaking hands with someone I recognized, my own brother. Turns out, the plan might have been bigger than just the two of them. And maybe, it's not over yet. Seeing that photo of my husband with my brother was the final blow, but also the final piece of the puzzle. I spent days going over every moment, every conversation with both of them over the years. My brother had always acted distant when it came to family matters, but now it all made sense. He had known about the land, and the timing of everything lined up a little too perfectly. It hurt in a whole new way, knowing that the betrayal ran deeper than I ever imagined. But I decided not to let the pain define me. I gave the photo to my lawyer and closed that chapter for good. I never heard from my brother after that, and honestly, I didn't need to. Sometimes peace doesn't come with closure, it comes from choosing to walk away. In the end, I didn't just lose a husband or a nephew. I lost illusions. I let go of the version of family I thought I had. But in return, I gained something more important: clarity, strength, and control over my own life. The land stayed in my name. The house is now quiet, but it's peaceful. And I've slowly started rebuilding from the wreckage. If there's one thing I've learned through this true infidelity story, it's this: betrayal doesn't always come from the outside. Sometimes it hides behind familiar faces, waiting for the right moment. But once the truth is out, there's no going back, and honestly, that's a good thing. Because now, I know better. And I'll never ignore my instincts again.